myself and Dr. Gaskins, we did a study looking at older African Americans, 24 of them in the state, all over the age of 50, living with HIV. And we were really just trying to characterize their stigma. And what we found was that their stigma was internalized. So it wasn't something that they even recognized themselves. It was more depression and some other areas that we've talked about. But one of the most significant findings was that we asked them where did they most feel stigmatized. What location did they most feel stigmatized? And most of them reported that the church was the location of most of their internalized stigma. But at the same time, they also valued spirituality as a way for them to cope with the disease. So you've got a paradox going on here. So I do appreciate Bronwyn talking about the church, because you do have a lot of women in the church, but at the same time, we need the church to really kind of deal with at least the support mechanisms for those who are already infected with HIV. But we know also from the literature that the black church is an important institution for the African American community, both socially and politically, particularly, I think, even more so in the Deep South. And we know, although there may be challenges around using the black church as a vehicle to really do prevention because of the stigma, as you mentioned, around issues of drug abuse and homosexuality, and several studies have focused on this, but they've mainly focused on urban populations. So what I set out to do, and let me just say that the CDC has recognized this, the black church as an important focal point, particularly in African American communities. In 2006, they convened a meeting, brought together black faith leaders, and one of the major recommendations was that we need more collaborative efforts in HIV prevention in African American communities, really using faith-based models. So I set out to do a study last year where I looked at an African American Baptist denomination here in Alabama. I first interviewed 8 rural African American pastors, and then the second level of the study was to survey their membership, 56 of their church leaders. This was both rural and urban in the second part of the study. And one of the significant findings is that although we thought that most rural pastors would not be interested in HIV prevention, they were. All of the 8 that I interviewed, all the pastors were willing. Although all of them were not doing HIV prevention activities like testing or education, there were differences between willingness between rural and urban, for sure, when we surveyed the church leaders. So it appeared that the urban church leaders were doing more HIV prevention activities than the rural churches. But we also, one of the things that came out was sort of an aha moment for me, because I was busy trying to find out what the barriers were for them doing prevention activities. And of the 8 that I interviewed, they all were willing. So then I said, well, wait, maybe I need to think about what is it about them that makes them willing to participate. And so I started thinking about it more as a positive influencer. And most of them had, I talked earlier about this reverse migration, most of them had moved from the Northeast or other large cities back to Alabama to pastor. Yeah. So that's something we may need to think about.